networking and helping other people.
Yeah. So I think for me, and I've heard this story, it's very cliche, but I was going through a lot of shit, a lot of like really bad relationships, just, I just went through a very, negative, difficult phase in my life, and like music was the only thing that was there for me even before I started playing, as cheesy as that sounds, because music's like, we're listening to it all day, every day. Right now, the plan with BandGoh is I'll probably be going like all in for it with maybe 3 years or so. We have BandGoh Beta Lite, which is coming out this Friday, December 7th, and then we have um, BandGoh Lite, and then we have BandGoh. So there's 3 versions of BandGoh, and we're basically trying to just build up as much and generate as much revenue as we can, so we can pour it right into the next app, After that, though, I'm probably going to be sick of it. So I already have a team of people that are going to take over, that are ready to take over right when I'm just like, all right, I can't do this anymore. And then after that, I'm working on a book right now, and we're planning. Actually, I can't really say anything because I don't know what we're planning yet. But we're talking to some people. It's basically a book about just like the music business, how it works, and then people that struggle with anxiety and depression because of the music scene. It's all a thing. Kind of just talking about how I like came up in the music scene in general, stuff like that. And then we also have a little run that we're doing with my band No One, which we haven't really released anything yet, but it's a La Dispute kind of vibe to it, Have Mercy vibe, Citizen vibe, the really sad stuff. But it's kind of just like my personal little like diary. I have a ton of stuff that I've been writing for years, from the first girl I've ever dated to the most recent one, to just a lot of shit that I've gone through. Not even just with the relationships, even though that's what sells. But yeah, I mean, so we have, between the book and between just performing and all that, it's something that I want to kind of just reinvest my value back into, is performing and just kind of opening up the creative side again, because the business side takes over your life and it's a pain in the ass. So I'm really trying to, after the 3-year mark, I'm probably just gonna push it aside, and it'll still be my baby. But I just got out of like doing tour booking full time. I'm kind of just it's like a stepping stone for me, and I have jobs from like bigger companies that were offered to me, which I honestly probably won't ever take, just because I like working for myself.
Yeah.
But
it's a lot more fun.
yeah, it is. You're in control. I'm a control freak. So yeah, I'm kind of just going with it though right now. We have a tour that we're leaving on January 11th for like a month and a half. So for me, that's just going to be a really good experience. I get to meet as many people, all the people that come out to the shows at least. So yeah, it'll be a good time. I'm kind of just taking it a day at a time, trying to not go crazy with stress. But yeah, just enjoying life. For my tour booking company, Alleyway, we started about, I want to say like 3 or 4 years ago, when we started primarily in the local booking. I started booking at the Trocadero Theater, and then past that I started booking at a ton of different venues in the Philadelphia area. So from that point on, I realized that there was a huge demand for just playing local shows in general, and I decided to create a tour booking app called BandGoh, which enables artists to book shows by themselves for complete no charge at all. Stuttered there, that was awkward. It doesn't matter. Everything came out of my pocket, and we didn't want to start, gathering advertisers and just figuring out ways to generate revenue until the app was actually finished. So we had to pay thousands of dollars out of pocket that came out of my pocket, my team's pocket, in order to make something that was fully functioning yet was standalone, and we didn't actually partner with anybody directly. So, hell yeah. Yeah, I mean, what it comes down to is, even if BandGoh crashes and burns, it at least gives somebody an idea for a platform to create that maybe they can put millions of dollars into it instead of thousands like I'm doing. Regardless, it creates a kind of like a layout for somebody to go off of. And the biggest thing that I've realized is the people on a local level that support one another are the people that are already in projects. So there are hundreds of bands in the area that you're not even familiar with that have like their own little base of fans. And the way that I'm envisioning all of this working is you're going to be connecting with a ton of different local artists and different local bands, and you're going to have them start coming to your shows, and then their fans will come to the shows. It's really just you're giving yourself the ability to connect with as many people as you possibly can without any restrictions, whether it be Facebook or Instagram, whatever you use to search bands. There won't be any restrictions because this is solely for music. For For me, I'm fortunate enough to have a huge database of artists at this point, especially when I do local booking in the Philly area. So I'll get hundreds, sometimes even like thousands of messages a day from different bands and artists and managers. And the one thing that I realized is the ones that I usually work with, unless they're like really good friends and have that drive like you guys do, the only way I'll work with them if they're consistent and that they can prove to me, not even from like, you know, a one-to-one type thing, but if they can prove to me on their social media, prove to me with, you know, the amount of content that they're posting, that's like when I'll actually work with them. So it's not necessarily overwhelming, more so that it's hard for me to kind of get across that I'm only working with bands that actually like care, that give a shit. Am I allowed to curse?
No, yeah,
Yeah. I only really work with bands and artists that give a shit about their art, you know, and that's what the biggest thing for me. And I see that by looking into their social media, by giving it a quick, like, you know, 1 minute scan, seeing like when they posted last, like how many organic followers they have, stuff along the lines of that. Honestly, all started there. I mean, the first venue that I started working at, the Trocadero, the way that I actually got in with the promoter there was because the first band that I ever had, our first show was at the Trocadero, and I told him that I knew a ton of bands that I wanted to send his way, and it's what I realized is as long as it can be mutually beneficial to the venues and the promoters that you're working with, you're kind of tied in with them for like life. You know, it's that like unbreakable bond once you start working with them, and as long as you can be of service to them, they'll be of service to you. So I've definitely had a lot of you know, positive feedback from these like venues and promoters and people that wanted to get on board with the app itself. So I definitely do think that by working with all of these different promoters and venues, it's definitely helped me kind of have like a solid layout for the app. And it's a bitch because, you know, some of the people that are like the most talented, like you guys, it's tough because if you don't have both of those aspects down, the social media and the performing and the writing and all of that, if you don't have all of them down, something will go wrong. Yeah. So I would definitely I tell every artist that I work with, post as much as you possibly can. Yeah. Post at least once a day. There's always like a positive outlook in all of it, you know, as you keep promoting your art, you'll become more confident with yourself and the things that you do just in general, like not even with music, just when you're promoting your art and you're kind of like putting up, like you're kind of like taking down that shield and just unleashing like complete vulnerability to like all the art that you have, you see progress and results like right away, like with yourself and then with your actual art and how people receive that. Just going through a lot of stuff, pretty much. I was very depressed, I was suicidal, I was just going through it, and that was maybe when I was like, I was really young. I was like maybe 13, 14 years old. And I just had a lot of stuff going on. I didn't really understand what anxiety and depression and all that stuff was until I started, you know, feeling that. And my buddy, who I went to church with like years ago, was playing guitar, and he's been playing guitar like his whole entire life. And he was just a huge role model to me in general, just, you know, as a, you know, person to person. And, you know, I just always looked up to him. And then one day, you know, I just decided to like pick up a guitar and start playing it. And so I went through a series of playing in different bands, and then I realized that I was doing all of the work in the bands that I was in, like on the business side of it. And I realized that, you know, it was kind of my niche. I love performing, but the business side for me personally is just like, you know, I guess something that I'm like better at in general. And I also have like just like a business mind as it is. You know, hate that I was getting online. That was a big thing for me. I really, I've been getting messages from all over the country about people that are excited for BandGoh, but with that also comes a lot of negativity, a lot of hate coming from people all around the country. So I think it was really just a mental stress, something that I built up in my own head just because I've never been so vulnerable. I've never been at that point of saying like, hey, this is my idea, this is what I'm doing, and in return getting a ton of backlash for it, and also a lot of love. The stress is always there, and that's something that I couldn't cope with before BandGoh was even a thing. But now it's kind of just lifted off my shoulders, and I just, like I said, I take it a day at a time with everything that I do now. And I realize that, you know, as I grow as a public figure and like in that music scene, it's gonna, you know, I'm gonna get more hate. I'm also gonna get more love, but I try to just block it out, you know. Yeah. And at one point, you know, once I have that following, I'm having my managers like take over my social media just because I can't, you know. I hate seeing, you know, I want to just be comfortable with myself. I don't need anybody else's input. So like, we already have that plan just because I know, you know, social media is evil. You know, I'll look at the comments that are getting put, you know, on my posts, and you know, it's either a good thing or a bad thing, but regardless, I don't want it to have any impact on how I feel, you know, myself. Work with is I want to be of service to as many people as I possibly can because I feel like, you know, with the mentality that I have, the place that I'm at in my life, the reason of my, you know, my being, you know, is to help as many people as I can. So, yeah, I don't know. I try to just do as much as I can. That's really the bottom line of it, and I try to connect with as many people as I can. But, yeah, dude. Sorry, that's a cough. This cough sucks dick, bro. I don't know. Honestly, I really don't. I think for me, like, the biggest thing was I'm a very strong believer in making friendships before business relationships, even though they say never to mix friends and business. I do it all the time because I feel like that's the most genuine way you can actually connect with somebody, especially if you want, like, a long-term relationship with them, you know, a business relationship and just a friendship in general. So I think the first step for me was using the connections that I had before I was in a post-hardcore band, and then kind of transferring all of that and using the promoters that would still want to work with that type of sound into just building off of them the connections that they had. So that's the biggest thing for me, just connecting with people, being friends with everyone.